showtime.
It's time for that radio show everyone loves.
Do not attempt to change the station. Just listen, and we'll keep broadcasting.
It's time to begin the show.
103.9 LI News Radio presents Your Island, the very best in talk radio, with your host, Tom Schiliro.
And once again, welcome back to this segment of our program, our Friday edition, being brought to you by the Suffolk County Police Benevolent Association. The PBA serves to support law enforcement, participate in special events and programs, all designed to help protect our community. They care about you and keeping us all safe. From the anti-drinking and driving campaigns to protecting our children with education on the Megan's Law, PBA promotes a great relationship between the police and the people it's sworn to serve. Suffolk County is one of the safest counties in the country, and the PBA takes pride in its strong belief in our security. They have honored our fallen heroes and contribute greatly to our suburban way of life. Need to know more? Go right to that website, www.suffolkcountypba.org. Noel DiGirolamo, president. I did just get a text message from Dr. Fernando. He said he'll be here at 1:10, and right now it's currently 1:08, so we're waiting for the doctor to come in. As soon as he comes in, we're going to take questions and comments and literally try to get the discussion going of where we are right now with COVID-19. Question during the first segment is the fact that the whole idea of restrictions on some of these states that are reporting increases, at what point, where should they go with that? Should they just leave the restrictions in place? Should they keep the opening going and so on? So we got a lot of questions to ask for the doctor. So we're putting the pressure on him. I know Lisa Navarra in the studio also has some questions, getting some comments on our Facebook. We are broadcasting live on Facebook. All you have to do is go to Your Island with Tom Schiliro, and you can see our studio. Again, Lisa Navarra in the studio with us. Joanne writes in, COVID-19 is still out there. Please take all the precautions. People are letting their guard down. Lisa, what do you think?
I agree. Yes, people are letting their guard down. And as I was saying before, it's a very personal level of comfort, but we really need to communicate to one another. I'm still social distancing. I may be out here. Maybe I'm getting a bite to eat outside, which is great. We all need that. But that still means that we need to keep our distance and just be happy with what we have. Yes, I agree that this will subside, and it might just come down to it's like the flu that we know and become familiar. But the thing is, it's so new. And it feels so old because we've been here for months now, living in isolation and in a way that we never chose to live. However, we just need to get through this so that way our numbers stay low long enough where we all really have confidence to say, you know what, we've learned a lot. We've had the time to study it. We know the ins and the outs of it. There's no more surprises. And now we can live in a certain way that it's okay. I'm just going to keep everything clean. Oh, I know it's the COVID-19 season now, just like flu season. Yeah. And we have to come to a level where we almost feel more normal. And that's going to take time. Yes, it is different strains of the flu. We're familiar with the flu, but this is still a pandemic, and we're still very uncertain about the effectiveness of how it can really impact the health of ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah. You know, again, a good point on that too. Again, we're still waiting for the doctor. For the most part, your concern has been with the schools and the children and so on, and I know you see a lot of clients, and of course, there's always that concern about keeping the parents safe, keeping the kids safe, and so on. But again, I keep reading. I know we touched on it, but not enough to my own satisfaction, is what is going to happen in September. There is a movement out there, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fiscal restraints. You're hearing the governor saying, I don't think we could support our school districts to the extent that we are. And this is where I come in. I have believed that this forgotten middle class out there in Suffolk County that pays an exorbitant amount of money in property taxes, with upwards of 70% of your property tax bill goes to your school district. We honor our schools. Our schools are the greatest in the country. I love our teachers. I love our schools. I love our students. They're coming out absolutely great. But if this governor decides to literally deal with a $16 billion deficit and taking it away from school districts like Longwood, like Sachem, like William Floyd, like those districts like there, we're going to look at an unbelievable increase. So the answer could be, a lot of people saying, and again, you as an education professional, well, look, we have this COVID-19 out there right now. Let's just keep the schools closed for another half a year.
money, it's usually even a factor on a good day. And so now the threat of cutting it, up to like 20% possibly?
Could be.
Devastating. Yeah. It's devastating because not only do we have the needs that we once had, but now we have a whole bunch more needs based on mental health needs, health needs in general. I mean, what do they have to buy all these new precautions, the cleaning. We're talking about even nursing. What are they going to do? There's talk about when kids arrive at school. There's going to be two things that I've heard. One, temperature checks. So there's an investment there. Two, they're thinking about staggering arrival and departure. All these really have a direct impact. And not only that, now we're looking at platforms, online platforms, to provide maybe a hybrid educational program where students come in, maybe it's 1 week at a time. So an A week, certain like 10 kids come in, B week, the other 10 kids go into schools. And while they're not in school, now they're on an online platform. Or there's also the fact that one district had mentioned maybe what we can do as an alternative is have some kids at home online watching and learning real time of what's going on in the classroom. But whatever that is, when it comes to the money, these programs, we have to buy them. They have to apply by FERPA to make sure that student confidentiality is withheld. They can't just go on FaceTime. We need professional programs, and they're out there, but they cost money to be able to really make sure that children's rights and information is not going to start floating around on the internet.
Okay, 631-451-1039. Update on the doctor. It's a good thing he didn't have an emergency operation to take place right now because there would be a problem with that patient. But he did say he's going to be here in another 5 minutes, so we're still waiting. But in the meantime, I have confidence he will be in the studio today to take some questions. But our number here is 631-451-1039. Again, as the child behavior specialist, for the most part, and meeting with clients and so on, this has got to be somewhat upsetting. I guess it's kind of tough for me to go back to my elementary school days and my middle school days, and right away you think, I would have loved this. This would be great. We don't have to go to school anymore. But I don't think the kids are taking it that way in this third decade of the 21st century. No, they're not. And even when so many students have been disengaged and not doing their work, a lot of that has been because they feel so overwhelmed by the fact that they have to engage and participate online and read, and they're not getting that individual attention. It's striking their self-concept and their self-worth of what their abilities are. And so there is an issue right there. So what happens is they don't have those inner skills to be able to continue engaging educationally. They're lacking the social part of learning. And now come back to school, that educational gap that those kids who struggle might be even bigger. There's even talk, let's put it this way. There's even talk where, say, kindergartners. Now you have a 5-year-old, they're going into school, they're just learning. And now come December, they're starting to get the routine, right? And now from December to June, all right, they understand their expectations and they're becoming a little bit more independent. But what they're looking at is now come their first grade this September, they're going to look like kindergartners. Yeah. And, again, Angela, who, again, one of our great listeners wrote in that how are school budgets passing for a school year a budget that doesn't exist yet? Very simply, it's anticipated funding. They're looking at it and say, well, these are the anticipated funds based on anticipated revenue. Well, we're not getting the state sales tax revenue. That's not going to Albany. So, they don't have that money. And, of course, they're going to anticipate your portion of your property taxes. Well, they could look forward to that, providing that people were able to pay their property taxes. If you live in the town of Brookhaven, they would do a couple of weeks ago by the end of May. So if you put all of that together, it's anticipated funding. But if for some reason the governor says it ain't there and time comes for the school districts to say pay up right now, it's just not going to be there. This could be a crisis in education, and that puts you right in the middle of it, Lisa.
Absolutely. It is a crisis in education, and it's not one that's going to go away this year. It is going to be a trickle-down effect financially and educationally, socially, and emotionally and behaviorally. This is just the beginning. It's going to be a lot of catch-up time in so many ways. Big crisis.
Okay, 631-451-1039. Oh, we got Dale over there in Bellport. We got Dale in Bellport. Dale, what do you say? You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I just was wondering, I hear that, like, the kids may have their temperature taken. Listen, I'm a school bus driver. Well, how are they going to protect us?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times we think about the teachers, but we don't really think about the maintenance staffs or the support staffs, like Dale. Dale's an integral part of it.
Yeah, even with a mask on, these kids come up the steps and they're coughing in your face.
Right.
And there's no way, I don't think, to put up any kind of barrier or anything because we're already in like a cockpit as it is, that's just one of my things, and I have two grandsons one's is going to be a senior this year and the other one is just going into high school. And I mean, this is horrible for these kids. It really is. Their sports has all been canceled. The schools have to think about that too. I mean, it's just crazy.
And that's a good part of it.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll finish
all
up.
Right.
Thank you, Dale. Let's finish up with Lisa now.
Yes.
Then we got the doctor is in, ladies and gentlemen. Get.
Dale, real quick, I just want to thank you because I know being a bus driver is such a difficult job and it's very, very challenging. And I could appreciate your concern for yourself as well as the students who enter your bus. So I hope that if you are on a route and you are transporting children, that the numbers are low, that you stay healthy, that the kids stay healthy. And thanks for calling in. I appreciate
that. Once again, with us right now, as promised, Dr. Rajiv Fernando. He's been here literally every Friday, taking time out from an extremely, extremely, extremely busy schedule to answer some very important questions. Doc, Doc, I want to welcome you. You look a little hairy. Take a deep breath. I know you've been running around like crazy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, you guys. It's always a pleasure to be in the studio with you.
Some people were writing, actually calling on a little earlier for questions for you, and we'll be taking questions up to the 2:00 hour for Dr. Fernando. Our number is 631-451-1039. One of the points that came through before is that so many of these states are loosening their restrictions, Doc. But again, now we're starting to see, and I'm getting frightened, and I'm sure you're watching with a cautious eye on the increases in Georgia, Texas, Florida, at least 18 other states that are loosening restrictions at the same time. They don't seem to give a damn, Doc.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. 20 states, like you pointed out, Tom, cases are increasing. And despite the fact that cases are increasing, the governors are just pushing more and more to open up the state. And like I said, this is a frustrating time for a lot of businesses, but you have to reopen the state based on science and statistics. And that's where I think we're failing.
Doc, I've been reading your Facebook page and some of the great things that you're putting out there. You seem to be somewhat, and correct me if I'm wrong, but optimistic a little bit about a treatment that's out there. And I was reading very, very interested in what you were saying about this. Of course, we're all interested in a treatment, but let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I'm glad you brought this up, Tom. So there is something called the recovery trial. The recovery trial is studies that are done all across the planet where they study drugs that we feel may be useful to treat these patients. Now, let's take, for example, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin was studied very early on. In March, it was a small study out of France. They said that would work. Ever since then, they really followed it with a 90,000 people study, which said actually it doesn't work. So that's one thing that was done. Unfortunately, the government purchased about 60 million hydroxychloroquine pills in a stockpile. So that's where we are with that. Hopefully that can be used for a malaria epidemic around the planet. But this is a drug, dexamethasone, was studied also in the UK, and it actually showed to decrease mortality only in sick patients. So for example, if you're out in the community, you're diagnosed with COVID-19, don't go to your doctor and say, hey, I have this, I have COVID-19. I want the dexamethasone steroid. Absolutely not indicated. It's indicated for people people who are sick in the hospital, those with the pneumonia and those who are intubated on mechanical ventilation in the ICU. So people with mechanical ventilation is actually showed to decrease mortality by about 35%. And those who have a pneumonia, it decreases mortality in about 20%. So this is very exciting because it really is the first drug we know that actually decreases mortality. The other drug in the market called remdesivir, it decreases what we call morbidity, which means people who are in the hospital for an average of 14 days, that gets cut into about 11 days. So yeah, it decreases hospitalization, but these drugs, the dexamethasone steroid, slam dunk, it really reduces your mortality, and I'm completely in favor of it.
Does that go under the category? Because again, as you know, we're live streaming on Facebook. You could watch us. You can see the doctor. You can see Lisa. 631-451-1039 is our number. It's Your Island with Tom Schiliro. One of our listeners, a nurse, a registered nurse, her name is Joanne. She, again, asked the question, how about steroids? Is that really what we're talking about right now? Is that drug considered a steroid?
Yeah, Joanne, you're absolutely right. And, initial studies, and this is the problem. I've seen a lot of studies start off saying it's promising, then go back. But yes, initially they said that steroids aren't good, but subsequently, for us, when we were treating patients, we had nothing. So hydroxychloroquine was taken out, azithromycin was taken out, and still these patients were dying on a ventilator. And, even though it wasn't guideline driven, a lot of times we say, well, let's go for it and see this is the best thing we can do right now. And I personally have seen steroids work in a lot of patients. So I'm glad there's this study is actually coming out, and within a few weeks, we'll see the peer-reviewed, other doctors reviewing it. But I think it's a slam dunk. It is a home run, and I'd really like to see more physicians use this across the country.
And that's for the severely ill on COVID-19.
That's correct.
Is it fair to say that the majority of patients, or the majority of people that contracted COVID-19 in this country, literally home cured themselves, so to speak?
Absolutely.
With the Tylenol?
Absolutely. Remember, we know about 80% or 85, up to 85% of people who get COVID-19 just have a little cough, and I didn't mean to blow into your mic. I'm sorry. Okay. I really didn't.
But Lisa wiped everything down.
Here you go.
Yeah, all right. A little wipe. We might as well just do that. For all of you watching on Facebook Live.
The camera's over there.
That's Steve's from Young Living.
There we go. Yeah, camera's here. Yeah. So, you just have a little bit of a cough, and you kind of get better. You remember this illness because you'll say, I have some body pains, a touch of fever, don't feel great, but they just get better on their own. So we know that 80% of people have virtually no symptoms. So that's why I'd mentioned, if you have COVID, if you're tested positive for COVID-19 and you're not in a hospital, chances are you don't need this drug at all. There's been no beneficial effects. Remember, steroids can be harmful. I think nothing in the world is for free. If you take something, there's always a downside. So not indicated at all if you're sitting at home with COVID.
Okay, we have Dr. Rajiv Fernando in the studio taking phone calls, 631-451-1039. We got Ed over there in Bellport. Ed, doctor's waiting for your question.
What's up, Ed?
Hey, how's it going, Tom? Hi, how are you, sir? How you doing?
Good.
I got a couple questions. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't profess to know anything, but I was around in 1968 when they had the influenza breakout, and my father used the hydroxychloroquine. It's been around 70 years. Yeah. But my question is this, and I'll keep it short. If what you're saying is true, that the hydroxychloroquine is only good for people that are near death with COVID-19, then why is the most important man in the world and the best medical care in the world, the President of the United States, using it now? That's my only question.
Yeah,
I'll hang up here.
I absolutely. Yeah, great question. And I touted, I mentioned dexamethasone as a steroid is the treatment that works. Some politicians are in favor of using this drug, hydroxychloroquine. Also, the U.S. now has 60 million pills of hydroxychloroquine, which I actually said, where's this going to go? You can ship it back out of the country for a malaria pandemic. But this drug has been studied extensively. Like I said, hydroxychloroquine is a study done in about 90,000 people all over the world and published in the greatest medical journal. It's called The Lancet. Very conclusive evidence that it doesn't work. So please, even if your doctor tells you to use hydroxychloroquine, really take a step back and please mention to all of you out there, please mention that, other people have told me, I've read articles that it doesn't work. Hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. So I definitely don't advocate for that for now.
Before we take our break, Lisa Navarro has to leave at the end of the segment. She had a very important question for Dr. Rajiv Fernando, who's in the studio with us right now. Lisa?
Thank you. Yes, I'll just ask real quick. I have lots of questions for you. Maybe we'll meet up again on another day. But in regards to schools, so the effectiveness of temperature checks, also the deep cleaning that classrooms will have to go under, is that going to have to be daily? And then do they have to wait a day or two before, a certain amount of time before having students re-enter their classrooms?
Yeah, great questions. So screening for a fever, I think, is a good idea. It's never been used in the history of, infectious diseases or pandemics, but by doing it more and more, I think it increases your chances of getting a fever. Now, if patients with COVID-19, 87% have fevers. So if you have COVID-19, you've got to have a fever. It's very unlikely that you don't. So what I actually suggest is, sometimes the parents checking temperatures at home, actually, and emailing it to the class teacher or the supervisor. That's one way. When they come into school, check another temperature. I think these are reasonable ways. And of course, like you pointed out, I think daily cleaning is important. Every day as you clean, it's what we call a terminal clean. It's at the end of the day, I think it's a good idea to do this terminal clean. And of course, the 6 feet distance in school. Now, all of these are great suggestions, but none of them are foolproof. I got to be very upfront with you. We've seen schools in France open up, same precautions. A few days later, all the kids tested positive. For many kids tested positive. I shouldn't say all. And sometimes you don't see it. The reason is kids hardly manifest COVID-19. They just don't have, it's hard, very, very mild symptoms. So it's not the kids per se that are at risk for, severe disease. It's the elderly people or their parents or elderly people with comorbidities that can get very sick. So that's very important to know.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. Now, we got Dr. Rajiv Fernando staying in the studio to the 2 o'clock hour. There'll be more questions. We're going to talk about the potential of a vaccination. Again, people writing in about that. But Lisa Navarro, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Lisa Navarro is one of our contributors here on our Midday Live program. I'm Tom Schiliro. You are listening to Your Island here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Taking a short break. Final segment of the week coming up.